Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Exactly a week ago, the world commemorated World Health Mental Day. Of course, it is celebrated every year on October 10th. And the theme for this year's celebration is workplace mental health. And of course, that is why today on the program, we're taking a look at this issue at work. Now, according to the Federation of Mental Health, of course, which is the body saddled with the responsibility of finding the theme for the yearly event. The theme highlights the importance of addressing mental health and well-being in the workplace for the benefit of people, organizations, and communities. With the current condition of Nigeria and how things are at the moment, it becomes very imperative to take a look at this conversation and talk about the mental health of people, especially in the workplace. If your mental health is questionable, can you then deliver on the mandate of you working appropriately while at work? We do have a clinical psychologist who will help us give context to this conversation today. Thank you, Mr. Olubenga Koka, for being on the program today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, so let's start from the theme of this year's celebration, of course, workplace, mental health at the workplace. How important is this? Because oftentimes, we've talked about emotional intelligence a couple of times, but a lot of people still do not understand why it is important that your state of health, your state of mental capacity is important for you to function well at work. And so, as a colleague, as a boss, what are some of those things that you need to know to be able to decipher if someone is troubled or if that person is stable mentally?
Okay. So one of the things that is important for us to note at this particular point in time when it comes to workplace mental health is that mental health is like physical health. Okay. That is why the World Health Organization calls it a state. So it can improve. It can actually deteriorate by reason of one, internal issues, two, enabling or unenabling environment. Okay. So the workplace now being the environment that we are referring to in this particular case. So number one, for some set of persons, they have certain stress that they live with on daily basis that they have not been able to get over with. Stress in themselves are not bad, but it could get to that point, at that particular point where it becomes a problem that begins to interfere with their everyday functioning. Those are there. So we see a little lapses here and there. Okay. First categories of persons. The second category of people that are in this particular bracket are those people that are with some mental illnesses. Okay. Yes. So this set of persons with some mental illnesses like mood disorder, we talk about depression, anxiety, or in certain cases, bipolar affective disorders. So this set of persons, they are able to function. They work just like every other person there. But you discover that the gap becomes wide. At certain point in time, they go overboard or they underperform. Then we begin to talk about presenteeism at work. So this means that an individual is at work, but they are undercompensating for whatever level of productivity that is expected of them per time. Then we have the serious ones that are maybe the schizophrenic. There's something we call paranoid schizophrenia. It's a type of schizophrenia. Those people we see on the road that are moving around, there is a type of that schizophrenia that is actually able to work. They are able to function. They are able to be productive, but there is this underlying cause of paranoia, undue suspicion, so they cannot keep relationship. When you were laughing with her, so you probably were talking about me. It is not something that is a character defect. It is a problem with their mental and emotional health. Okay. So these people are effective at at their job alone, but when it comes to interpersonal skills, it is low, it is poor. So we see these three categories of persons. They are the people that we refer to when it comes to mental health in the workplace.
Yeah.
And the fourth categories are those set of persons that already have good mental health, that either the policy or the culture of the organization can either make better or actually worsen, depending on whatever obtains at that place.
Okay, so earlier while you were speaking, you did say that stress is also a factor. But I understand there is good stress.
Yes,
okay,
stress.
Can you please clear the air? What is good stress? What is bad stress?
Okay, so eustress is what we refer to, EU stress.
Okay.
That is eustress. That's what we refer to as positive stress. So positive stress is that thing that keeps our heart beating. The reason why we get out of bed in the morning, the reason why we are motivated to do, like deadline, like we need to be at work so that we can be paid, like our children need to coordinate themselves so that they can excel and we need to support them. Those things that allow us function on daily basis, they pose some level of stress to us, but they are good stress, without which there's no challenge, there's no energy. And when there's no energy, there's no motivation to do anything. Right. When there's no motivation to do anything, the person is as good as down or depressed. So those ones are the ones we refer to as positive stress. It is because of those things that we are able to get up, go, and do the things we do in the form of contribution to our environment. But when we talk about negative stress, eustress can compound over a period of time where the stress bucket becomes like a cup or a jar that we are supposed to be leaking out bit by bit of the stress. So in a case where for some reason workload is tight, pressure is high, an individual is doing a role transition from your role to a managerial role, something like that, so, and they do not have a clue as to what to do part-time, then this becomes a burden to them. So those cases, you see a supervisor become a supervisee because having allotted responsibilities on Monday morning, one of the persons he is supposed to be supervising comes and say, I do not know what to do. And I say, okay, drop it on my office table. I'll come back to it. Then they just switched role without her realizing it in the bid to help that person. So the person comes to knock at the door every 1 hour to say, sir, how about my job? And he says, don't worry, when I do it, I'll get back to you. They have reversed roles. So like that. So because of this new manager may not know what to do part-time. And some other time from foggy situations like family issues, maybe socioeconomic factors, loss, bereavement of whatever kind. It could be a pet, it could be a person, it could be a pen, depending on the type of relationship the individual has with that thing. So yes, so it may cloud their judgment at the time. So making their level of productivity low and their ability to function now questionable over a period of time. So if they do not get help, problem is actually looming. Stress can be very good because it motivates us. Stress that is accumulated can be very, very dangerous and sometimes even fatal.
Right. So, I mean, with the scenario you've created and how important, so again, it's going to depend largely on somebody who is supervising another to be able to realize that that person actually has a problem. Because again, if you do not admit that there is a problem, you may not be able to find help. And we still have this problem with people admitting that mental illness is not, I don't want to use the wrong word now, mental illness is not categorized as perhaps you're crazy or you're mad, in quote here. And so it's important that people really understand that I'm having issues and I need help. But then if I cannot admit that I have a problem and I need help, how can somebody who is my supervisor help me and not talk down at me at that particular time that I am not able to perform well at my duty post?
Beautiful. So one of the things we need to know, especially when it comes to workplace mental health, is this, that we have leadership from top to bottom type of management. We also have bottom-up type of management or leadership, in the sense that there are certain crucial information that you can get from those people that we think they may be at the lowest level of the run. Like go to the gate to find out how does this person relate with the least quote and unquote, set of persons in the organization that is just driving, zooming, doesn't care about who is there, how are you, and stuff like that, for the purpose of promotion exercise. Because this person is moving from technical role to managerial, people management role. So yes, so sometimes too, certain persons may not necessarily have to need a boss that understands, quote and unquote, everything about mental or emotional health, but by my understanding of myself. So I can walk up to my supervisor to say, it works for me if you are able to identify and state my role in written form other than verbally, so I can go over it again and again. That way I am telling you, this is how best you can manage me for optimum performance. So that is bottom up type of management. Now then the up down, yes, type of management is the part where we understand that beyond the job we do, we are essentially a product of relationship. One, then this is what it means, that whatever level of fury an individual carries without fuel or being fueled by somebody, anybody, everybody, that thing is not going to last. So that fury may be in form of, let's say, in form of passion, interest, like that. They need fuel from certain quarters for that thing. So it is part of our management to understand the concept of people management, people relation, people interpersonal relationship, yes, and the rest of it like that, so that we know that they require some fuel for their positive energy to keep burning. They require the withdrawal of certain type of fuel for the negative energy to die a natural death over a period of time. Then we understand the part that is equality and equity. So the equality being, treat every staff the exact same way. Let each benefit accrue to every staff that is working in this place. Whereas equity says that this person, this is the major need of this particular individual. We are giving everybody equal opportunity to thrive, not necessarily the same level of opportunity.
So there's that part there. Oftentimes also we've had challenges with the top to bottom approach, where a boss does not just understand the personality of this individual, and then you tend to clash oftentimes because you can't just understand why this person keeps doing this thing over and over again, despite the fact that you may have complained that don't do this. But this person could also be dealing with issues that this person also may not necessarily understand the enormity of what they are dealing with. In such a situation, what are some of those words? Because again, there are times that we use words that are not allowed or that may further compound the issues this person is facing. So what are those things that are not acceptable in a workplace? No matter how high up you are, don't say this to your subordinates. Okay.
So one of the things we need to understand at this particular, with this question is this. There are certain persons, I talk about productivity because of technical skills. So there are things like mental health challenges like bipolar affective disorder actually leverages that. The individual, because of their level of energy and the rush at which they think, for their technical skill may be very high off the roof, that they will produce at certain pace that will heighten or speed up their rate of career development. So, and that they are there does not necessarily mean they know how to manage people. As a matter of fact, it is when they are now out of their comfort zone, you begin to see their problems. So maybe not necessarily because the boss is not supposed to use certain word, but the boss himself or herself actually is under a particular spell of some level of, mental health and mental illnesses as spectrums. So that some level of mental illnesses or mental health challenges secondary to their own emotional well-being themselves. Then two, there are a lot of things that actually shapes our roots. Number one, when an individual is striving, you understand, to be at the top, what are the things that he sees at the back of his mind? Take, for instance, somebody says, oh, immediately I become the boss, then everybody bows to me, because that is the culture they saw while growing up. So it is just one of those things that when they get to that place, they begin to demand such respect.
Okay.
So that is a part due to type of upbringing that they have. So the other part is, so when we now talk about the types of words that should be used at the workplace, the type of the structure or generally culture of the work environment. Okay, what are the things that should be permitted? Who should be permitted to do what? How many times can an individual make mistakes? It's just like they say, charity begins at home. It's just like one of those things that anytime you catch your son, your daughter, your sibling, or somebody doing something bad, you say, I have warned you about this before. And the child is wondering, come to think of it, I've done several things that are good today, but your eyes didn't go to it.
Why do you keep saying this?
Exactly. So it seemed like to perform is actually a norm that goes unnoticed and unrewarded. So, and once there is an error, then, so like the organizational handbook is supposed to be now clearly state when there is an error, how should it be addressed? Who should say what? How long should a conversation be? So that it will not be like, okay, we have said this thing for the boy that actually jumped where he isn't supposed to jump last night. First thing this morning, you are reminding the child again. Then as the child is going to school, you are saying it. So we now are able to tell the difference between nagging a child and actually correcting. So the same thing also can transcend into the workspace, because that was all that we saw growing up, that a repetition fosters learning by reason of you saying it and saying it and saying it. At a point, there are certain persons, that's why in psychology we have something we refer to as an individual's user manual, as in myself, me, and I. So what are the things that work for me? How best should an individual correct me? Should it be by words? Should it be by some other things? If you want to forestall a recurrence of certain things for me, how long should that conversation be? What form of conversation should it be? Would money work for me as a form of motivation or publicly acknowledging what I have done? So when we are able at entry points, are able to know what the level of sophistication that individuals are made of, their level of flexibility. Anybody with a sophistication also has some level of fragility. So you know areas automatically. When you see their strengths, you can tell where their weaknesses are. So it's now the onus from the HR to now escalate that to whoever is managing them, that this is the uniqueness of this individual, these are the strengths of this individual. Mind you, this individual also has this other area of them that you should not, as often as possible, so manage properly, or you should not overstep, because it can actually reduce their level of productivity a lot.
So that again means that there's the need for leaders or bosses to understand that it is not a one-size-fits-all approach.
No.
You cannot treat me the way you would treat another person, and then you cannot use my weakness and that person's strong point as a weapon. So you must find who I am, and then work with me or deal with me the way I am, and not use that as a yardstick on another person.
Exactly.
So again, if we understand that that's how it should be, how do we also deal with mental health issues and people who generally would also like to use that situation as a yardstick to be lazy at work? Because you have people who would also want to take advantage of situations and not do the appropriate things because they feel, oh, I'm dealing with certain issues. I'm not going to come to work, or when I come to work, I'm going to work for a few hours and I can take my leave. Well, you should understand that I am not well.
Yes. So two things. Number one, when an individual misbehaves, it's either due to lack of discovery of self or when they forget who they are. Yes. So once the career path is charted with whoever is the leader so when we do onboarding in organizations, so you put an individual under a manager or somebody that will help them chart their career path within that organization. And one of the conversations that we have is, if you're able to run like this, if you're able to do this, if you do this, if you have this particular level of qualification or academic certification over this duration of this is what awaits you. This was how I did it. This person, as what is it called? we cited as an example this other person. So if you run over a period of 1 year, 2 years, and on like that, when people know exactly what is in it for them, so that organizational buy-in, then it becomes easier to apply themselves to whatever. That is why at every point in time, for every negotiation to be successful, you have to show the other person, this is what is in it for you. Because why should I buy in if it is all yours? So other than what you are paying me. So yes, when they know that, it is easy. So that is one. Then number two, when we have clear-cut rules and regulation from start, that yes, we acknowledge and we appreciate certain persons with this level of functioning and these other persons that cannot function at that level. If this person cannot come to work on daily basis, what other areas of functioning can they, such that their productivity does not reduce, despite the fact that they do not show up? What are the, what is it called now? What are the statistics to show that it is only people that appear at work daily that are most productive? So what are the, vis-a-vis the strengths of this particular individual? What are the new things this person can bring on board to accommodate one, the largesse we are intending to give to this person based on their mental or emotional health challenges, such that there will be no gap. So in a space where those are not available, do we, because every organization is not the same, do we have the necessary provision to actually train this person so that they can be who they ought to be? Don't forget, every entry level is just an apprentice that an organization is trying to pay, accommodate, to teach, and to pay at the same time. So do we have the necessary facility to do this? It's like saying every school in Lagos State should be inclusive, but does every school have the facility to be inclusive? So yes, in some organization, they will have to let go, not because they do not have the person in mind, but they don't have what it takes to actually develop that individual evidently.
To do that. Before we allow you go, where's the place of favoritism? Because you also have that which has also helped some fuel the mental issues around some members of staff, because they feel, my colleague has a better rapport with our leader, and he or she tends to get away with things that I may not be able to get away with. And so does favoritism play a role here? Does it help fuel, or does it help reduce issues around mental health at workplace? Okay,
instead of using that word favoritism, just use like emotional intelligence, EI. So like there is politics in every space, however little. A one mom and pop shop, whatever. So everywhere. So my ability to get across to this individual without them suspecting that I want to use them for my own purpose. Yes. And I so communicate that vision to the point where they're able to run with it. Don't forget two ways. A subordinate can communicate their mental health vision to the point where you run with it and you do their job for them. As long as you don't feel used, it's okay. Yes. It's okay. So, and the person at the top too can communicate that thing that, okay, I will be here, I will remove my jacket, we will work at this till 2 a.m. and says, I love my boss, he's there, I don't feel I should leave. As long as that person does not feel used, then it is, let them call it whatever name, but it's just form of
as long as the job is done.
Yes.
What are some of the gaps that you have seen in workplaces, especially in Nigeria, that we need to address? Because again, we've identified the fact that it is not a one-size-fits-all. But to ensure that you know, emotional intelligence is at work, and to ensure that members of staff are also at their optimum, and what are some of those things that you'd like to see improve when we talk about mental health in workplaces?
So there are a few things we have seen and that we would like to reintroduce back to the workplace. So first of it is that there is this fire brigade approach a lot of organizations use when things are not working, when productivity begins to dwindle. One of the things we need to know is that the workplace is a learning environment. So whatever does not add to an individual part-time is actually taken away from that individual. So we want that to go back to where it used to be, where an individual feels that every week that I engage, I learn, and there are certain things that I take home from me that I can actually work with. That okay, being there for a month, I have learned A, B, and C, and it may not have anything to do with some form of technical skills only. Like, oh, we send them for training so that they can able to manage or handle camera. We send them for training so that they can do what we do, so that they can welcome our guests. Besides those ones, how about sending them for training so that they can understand their own self and how best to manage their own self, such that it may not show in the immediate, but the level of absenteeism can actually reduce. Then social loafing in the work environment also can reduce. Secondary to them now understanding themselves and how to manage themselves. Or ability to prioritize. All these things are soft skill. Ability to be assertive, to say yes when you actually mean to say yes. Yes, like that. To say, oh, actually in a very subtle and respectful way. Some people, when
you're not being confrontational
about it, yes. So they are able to do this. So these soft skills, we teach them from time to time, not because they are going to be needed, but so that, yes, when the need arises, we are not lacking or lagging behind. And you know, the things that we call a big deal in every organization are actually very tiny things that has accumulated over a period of time.
Joy has a question.
Yeah, you talked about bottom to top. So how about dealing with your colleagues? So what advice would you have for someone who is trying to keep his mental health stable, but then you're surrounded by colleagues who try to tear it down? So what are the coping mechanisms or tips that you can share to help you keep it in shape? Yeah.
So yes, coping mechanism for every individual, because too much of everything is bad, especially when we talk about dealing with people on the same platform. So one of the things an individual will have to understand is this, that nobody was born with coping mechanisms. So that I know it by default is not a truism. So that everything has to be learned. One, problem solving skills. This is a dynamic environment, and I have quite a number of people in this particular space. So what should I do to actually understand these people by first understanding myself and how I can help them? Ability to draw the line, what I can do to say, okay, this I will not be able to go forward with, and other things like that. Then distress tolerance skill, that is another part where I say it is not every problem I'm able to solve, but can I tolerate it? It's okay for certain things to happen, and I do not have a solution to it. It must not always be solution. Then third one are the coping skills now, emotions regulation skills, the things I can do for myself, what I can do to relax on daily basis, deep breathing exercises, understanding that these two shall pass depending on the situation, and some other things like that. And like I've said, assertiveness, ability to know.
Let me quickly hold your thoughts. And we need to take a break, a commercial break. When we return, our guest will conclude his thoughts and we'll wrap up this segment of the conversation. We'll be right back.
Tell me you have good news.
I'm trying my best, Jaja.
No, you're not a slave.
I am trying to help you, and you make a mockery of me.
Hey, calm down.
Don't tell me to calm down. She always does this.
You didn't mind. Answer me. For you to die.
We're talking lastly about coping mechanisms.
Yes, coping skills. So they could be a myriad, a lot, depending on the type. So the coping skills that best work for me may not actually work for another person. So it is first by self-discovery, then self-development, then know what works for me, know how I'm able to say no to certain things, yes to certain things in different ways, and what relaxes me, and how best I can actually make other people feel good even when I say no to them.
Right, so you have to find what works for you
yes,
as an individual. All right, Joy, I hope he's been able to give you, the answer to that. Yes. Thank you so much, Olugbinga Koka, clinical psychologist, for finding time to be here on the program. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues.